Picture this, it's 1856, the Lunar New Year firecrackers are still sputtering, and a barefoot French priest is being dragged through a muddy Guangxi market with a wooden board strapped round his neck like some kind of human wanted poster. 3 days later, his body beaten, caged, and headless gets tossed outside the city walls. European papers shriek that China has served up death by 1,000 cuts to an innocent missionary. Paris grabs the story, and within months warships are steaming up the Pearl River. But was it really Lingchi, or just a handy horror story for a war Europe was already itching to fight? The truth's messier, darker, and still echoes in every China West shouting match today. Auguste Chapdelaine wasn't your movie-style hero. He grew up on a Normandy farm, squeaked into the seminary at 30, and studied Chinese characters by candlelight while everyone else snored. In 1852, he sneaks into Guangxi, a province gutted by the Taiping Rebellion and simmering with anti-foreign paranoia. Missionaries are legally stuck in the 5 treaty ports. Chapdelaine shrugs, swaps his cassock for peasant rags, and hikes village to village preaching to folks who've just sold kids to pay the taxman. Locals call him the bearded teacher. Magistrates call him an illegal agitator. Both tags fit, which makes him the perfect scapegoat when tempers flare. February 25, 1856, 40 Qing constables kick in the chapel door at Xilin. Inside, Chapdelaine is baptizing to widows by candle flame. The charge, plotting rebellion and seducing good people with foreign doctrine, both death penalty offences. They also nab his catechist, Lu Tingrong, and a teenage convert holding him sheets. Officials wave around coded letters their Latin prayers, actually. Within hours, the priest is in irons, marched to the county yeoman. He refuses the usual foreigners get out of jail bribe and insists preaching Christ isn't a crime. That sentence signs his own death warrant. European tabloids print Chapdelaine tied to a Lingchi post while executioners carve ribbons. French naval surgeons tell a quieter nightmare, repeated floggings, then a can-think heavy wooden collar locking neck and wrists. Next they shove him into a squat iron cage dangling outside the prison gate, so the crowd can laugh. February nights in Guangxi flirt with freezing. Rain turns the ground to soup. Guards prod him awake with poles for 3 straight days. On morning 4 he's dead cold, broken, but mostly intact. The prefect orders a post-mortem beheading. The head goes on a spike above the south gate. No slicing ritual, no 1,000 cuts. Lingchi was 4 headline traitors, usually performed after death anyway. The cage was cheaper, faster, and still terrifying. News drifts downriver to Canton, where Francis charge d'affaires, Baron Gros, needs ammunition. Paris already plans to muscle China for new trade rights. A martyr's blood is pure gold. Gros mails Emperor Napoleon III the translated reports, plus a silk cord, supposedly from the cage. Within weeks French papers crowned Chapdelaine Lesset massacre. Pamphlets claim his heart was ripped out and offered to idols. Poets liken him to Lion's Lunch in the Colosseum. Outrage gives the government moral cover to dispatch 12 warships and 4,000 troops. Britain, fuming over the Arrow incident, jumps aboard. Welcome to the Second Opium War. Before the cannons fire, if these forgotten corners hook you, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We drop a new deep dive every week into events that bent borders and beliefs. All right, back to the war you probably skipped in class. Franco-British guns pound Canton in late 1857. They nab Viceroy Yomington, the same man who okayed the priest's detention and parade him in a cage through Calcutta. Northern forts tumble, Beijing trembles, the Qing court bolts to the summer hunting grounds. The 1860 Convention of Peking legalizes Christianity empire-wide, opens Shenzhen and Hankou, and humiliation still taught in Chinese schools lets British and French troops loot and torch the old summer palace. Chapdelaine's death becomes a footnote, but his name sneaks into the treaty. Missionaries can now buy land anywhere in China. One iron cage in Guangxi just redrew an empire. Catholic hagiographers see a fearless shepherd. Witnesses in 1900 recall him sharing his last rice with prisoners and humming psalms through split lips. In 2000, Pope John Paul II canonizes him among 120 Chinese martyrs. Feast day lands on February 29th. Chinese state textbooks call him an imperialist spy who raped village women and stockpiled rifles. Independent historians find zip credible evidence those charges pop up decades later, copy-pasted into Boxer-era propaganda. Same facts: illegal missionary, cage, head-on spike to opposite sermons. Truth sits in the middle nursing bruises. So why the stubborn thousand cuts legend? Part mistranslation. Early French interpreters turn executed and publicly exposed into put to the lingering death. Part sensationalism. Victorians lapped up travelogues dripping exotic torture, and editors' new catchy phrases sell. Mix the cage's real horror with post-mortem beheading, and Lingchi sounds believable. Even today, death by 1,000 cuts is shorthand for any prolonged cruelty. Slap it on a China headline and watch the clicks roll in. Chapdelaine's tale is a masterclass in how horror outruns fact, especially when empires want war. History forgets the people Chapdelaine served. After his arrest, Xyland's tiny Christian pocket faces payback. Rent spike, neighbors torch chapels, converts scatter into the hills. An 1862 visitor finds the chapel roofless, altar buried under peanut stalks. No plaque marks the spot today. The iron cage was melted for scrap. The south gate bulldozed in 1987. Memory survives only in family genealogies, where followed the foreign religion is inked next to names later crossed out. Missionary work giveth, history taketh away. Chapdelaine's death shows what happens when personal faith smacks into geopolitics. Western powers routinely weaponized individual suffering, real or spiced up to justify expansion, a tactic alive in today's headlines. Qing officials, meanwhile, turned domestic panic into brutal crackdowns, a pattern that resurfaces whenever regimes sniff foreign ideas. The episode also reminds us how torture methods become brands. Lingchi still equals Oriental cruelty, though Victorian crowds cheered public hangings that took 15 minutes to choke a thief. Finally, it warns us to side-eye emotional headlines. Behind every atrocity tale stands a complex human who was somebody's brother, somebody's burden, somebody's excuse for war. So Auguste Chapdelaine didn't die by 1,000 cuts, yet a single narrative slice rewrote China's map. Saint, scapegoat, or spy, take your pick. His cage reminds us stories, especially the ghastly ones, travel faster than gunboats. Next time a headline shrieks about far-off cruelty, ask who's spinning the yarn and who cashes in on your outrage. Was France right to avenge one priest, or did China have every right to boot an illegal preacher during a civil war? Drop your take below, and if these forgotten twists spark questions, smash like and share with the friend who swears they know everything about the Opium Wars. Bet they never heard of the bearded Frenchman in a cage, the Lingchi execution of a French missionary in China.